What is Farley's position on the auditor report of the PSA? What is his position? It cannot be the signing of a social contract that has no basis in law. What is his position? Is he the individual who he says that he is? But if he is big man, open up your mouth now. This situation with Farley and Watson reminds me of a big man living in another big man house. Open up your mouth if your name man. Permit me to recognize in our midst this evening party executives of the Tobago Council of the PNM who are present with us. And let me recognize Mrs. Yolanda Beckles, General Secretary, and of course her husband, former Assemblyman Handel Beckles. I also wish to recognize all of our candidates, and they're fully nominated as candidates and will represent us in this election formally. All 15 of us, we have signed our documents and we are ready to take the electoral districts by storm on the night of December 6, 2021. And so I have immediately behind me Marceline Melville Jack, co-area representative for this electoral district. I also have Charles Adams, co-area representative as well. We have Mrs. Nadine Stewart Phyllis representing us in Tobago East in the electoral district of Roxborough Argyle, and your very own Joel Duport Jack, candidate for this electoral district. Let me also recognize former assemblymen who are in our midst, and I see Miss Alfred coming out night after night to give our candidates support. Let me hail you out. And I know all of them are logged in, whether it be on the television or whether it be on the World Wide Web. Let me recognize members of the media who are present as well, and then all of Tobago who are tuned in and are listening to the message of the People's National Movement. Because this is in fact very good information. This is in fact powerful information. And most importantly, this is information that comes with and from the truth. Because this is what we are on the platform of the People's National Movement. And so, like all of the other speakers that have gone tonight, I too, as the political leader of the People's National Movement, take the opportunity to endorse your candidate, Joel Duport Jack, a man who is well experienced and one who will ensure that we take home victory in this seat. He has served as the secretary in the Division of Finance and Economy. And I know that he would do well in terms of serving you in this electoral district as a new, but at the same time, as a very experienced candidate. And one of the things I also know is that the last time I spoke to you from this platform, I spoke to you from the boundaries of the Scarborough-Cudler Hall electoral district. And at that time, I think it was somewhere in December or January, Marceline Melville Jack was the area representative. And now she has passed on that baton. She has passed on the representation in this electoral district to Joel Jack. And he, as I said, will do well representing all of you. And so I take the opportunity this evening to remind all those who are not yet convinced to listen to our message, and most importantly, to ensure that you absorb our message and that you are so moved that you can come out and give support to our electoral district or representatives or candidates rather, as we knock on every door throughout the electoral districts asking you for your support. Because we are about ensuring that we reconnect with all of the people wherever you are within the electoral district, and to give you the assurance that come 2021, that come December 6th, 2021, we will continue to serve you at a very high level. This is what the People's National Movement is all about. And so why are we at this point this evening, about 8 or 9 months after the last election? Of course, many of you would know that we had a 6-6 tie. And so we had an impasse where the PDP has 6 assemblymen, now candidates, and the People's National Movement had another 6, making up 12 electoral districts on this island. But there was a time when we reasoned as a people that we will put aside our own short-term objectives and our own short-term aims to look at the longer-term objective and the bigger picture, which is to ensure that Tobago receive full autonomy. And so along with the support of the Prime Minister, we had that meeting at Magdalena. I think it was somewhere in January or February of this year. And both political parties, the Prime Minister being independent in that sitting, the PDP and the PNM decided that we are both going to support the Tobago Autonomy Bill. Because we thought that that moment that all of us were Tobago-minded people and that we want the best for our people. And so we agreed that we're not going to focus on the Tobago House of Assembly amendment that would change the boundaries to 15 seats, but we would give support to the Parliament. We would give support to the PNM administration, and we would ensure at the end of the day that those consultations that would have started from since 1996 would be given the time of the day in Parliament, and that Tobago would be a better place come October 2021. But October 2021 has come and it has gone. And we are at the point now where we're going back to the polls without the Tobago Autonomy Bill passed in the House. And so because we did not obtain the support from the PDP and the UNC at that point in time, we now have to go to the only other option, which is the short-term option, which is the option that would have caused the seats in the Tobago House of Assembly, or the seats in Tobago rather, to become smaller in terms of its boundaries, and to now have 15 seats. And that is why we are at this point, 8 or 9 months after the next election, without that Tobago Autonomy Bill. But as we looked at the situation which unfolded then, in terms of the reasons why we did not obtain that kind of support that we thought we would have obtained, we recognized that it was more about personal agendas and interests over the bigger interest of the people of this island called Tobago. We recognized that it was about the people in the PDP wanting to become prime ministers and wanting to become chief secretaries without going through the normal process, without going through the traditional route that we usually have, where political leaders become prime ministers and eventually chief secretaries. And if you were to follow the law and if you were to follow the traditions, you would know what I'm speaking of. But most importantly, one of the things that we recognized at the end of the day is that all of the strategies that are implemented by the PDP has their roots in the UNC. And so no one at this point in time could tell me that the UNC and the PDP are not in alliance. When you look at all of the strategies that the PDP has been implementing, I can only surmise, and I hope you are seeing the same things as well. Their strategies are from the playbook of the UNC. Let us look back to, I think it was about 2010 or 2015, and even as recently as the last general elections. One of the things that the UNC called for in that election was international observers. Check it. One of the things that the PDP leader recently called for in this Tobago House of Assembly election is international observers. And I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, in Tobago, we have never had any issues with the Election and Boundaries Commission. As a matter of fact, there were times that the PNM would have lost election by 1 and 2 and 3 votes, and we have never challenged the EBC. But the UNC and the PDP continues to hog up. And at the end of the day, they are trying to undermine the integrity of the institutions that we consider to be independent and respectful in this land. Strategies of the UNC being implemented right here in Tobago, and we ought to pay attention to those. The PDP and the UNC have the same kind of intent. And that is why the political leader is talking about secession today. Because the UNC wants to ensure that Tobago is cut off from Trinidad because it is politically expedient for them. And every time the political leader of the PDP opens his mouth in Tobago, he does not support Tobago's autonomy. He doesn't support the bills that receive the consensus and the support of the majority of the people of Tobago, but rather he supports secession, which is, of course, a UNC strategy and a political strategy to ensure that the people of Tobago are no longer a part of the coffers of Trinidad. And when you look at the PDP and the UNC, you would recognize that they also have something else in common. And that something else is that they don't want any good for Tobago. Check it out. When the UNC was in office, in 2010, I think it was, to 2015, and the People's National Movement Administration was in office in Tobago, it was the worst time for us as a people in the administration. It was the worst time for us as people of Tobago. I recall many a times former Chief Secretary Orville London attempted to meet with the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, as he is bound to do by law, and that meeting never came off. If you read the Tobago House of Assembly Act, you would recognize that the Chief Secretary and the Prime Minister must speak on Tobago matters. But that never happened. And so when I tell you that the UNC and the PDP are aligned, ladies and gentlemen, there is enough information out there. And let us look at the utterings of the PDP. Any major plan and any ideas that come to this island for the people of Tobago to benefit, the PDP, Farley Augustine, deputy political leader, and Watson Duke, political leader of the PDP, are the first set of people to jump up and to criticize everything that is coming to this island. Look, for instance, at how they treated with the Sandals project. That Sandal project was supposed to have brought significant benefits to the people of Tobago. But Watson was all over the place, cursing Butch Stewart, cursing the Sandals management, cursing central government. And so the Sandals team decided that we are not coming to a place where we don't belong. And as a result, we have lost thousands of jobs. And I'm not talking about jobs for waitresses and farmers and fishermen. I am talking about jobs for those persons who have bachelor's degrees in tourism management, in management and the like. And this is why this evening I am making the point that the UNC and the PDP are aligned. They read from the same playbook. They do not want anything good for the people of Tobago. And more than that, ladies and gentlemen, they have the same intent, which is to ensure that Tobago secedes from Trinidad. And so if nothing else in this election, PNM people, Tobagonians, we have to come out and vote to ensure that we protect this beautiful space called Tobago. which has changed hands over 31 times. But we want to ensure that going forward that there is some stability. We want to ensure going forward that there is some predictability. And you will have that if you continue with the People's National Movement. Yes, you will hear that from me night after night, but it is the truth. We have to be in a position, ladies and gentlemen, to protect the gains that we have made as a people in this very beautiful space that we call Tobago. And sometimes we forget the strides that the People's National Movement administration has made on your behalf. And so I want to remind you, I want to take the opportunity to remind all of you this evening, the Secretary of Finance and the Economy is responsible for Emergency Medical Assistance Program. And to date, we have been able to treat with over 30,000 Tobagonians who needed support in that area, whether it was food support, whether it was medical alert. 30,000 Tobagonians and counting. We deserve a round of applause for treating with the vulnerable. We have over the years constructed several health centers on this island. If you were to go through every electoral district at this point, you would see a nice health center staring at you in the face. And within recent times, this People's National Movement administration has constructed a health center in Roxborough. We have opened up a new health center in Mariah. We have built a health center in Charlottesville, and very recently, we also built the Canaan Bonaccord Health Center. This brings us to a total of about 18 health centers in an island of 60,000 people, ladies and gentlemen. And if you were to do the math, you would recognize that as per capita, when compared to the rest of the region, Tobago, a small island, 60,000 people, is standing out strong. PNM style, PNM administration, ladies and gentlemen. Over the last 8 years, I'm not even going back as over the last 20 years, the Secretary of Community Development and Enterprise Development and Labor will tell you that we have built over 8 community centers in Tobago, and I started to list them out. Bell Garden Community Center, Betsy's Hope Community Center, Plymouth Bethesda Community Center, Speyside, Palatavere, John Dyer, Lambo, Lowlands, and the Boko Community Center. All of them built by the People's National Movement administration. So when they talk the crap and try to ask you about where the $40 billion went, tell them, I say, Tracy Davidson-Celestine, that it was spent in the development of every single community and electoral district in Tobago. That is where the money has gone. Further to that, we have worked with the YMCA to build 2 swimming pools, one in Tobago East and the other in Tobago West, again under the People's National Movement administration. We went down to Deep West and we recognized that there was a need for the community of Boko. There we needed the people of that electoral district, the goat racers needed a space where they could ply their trade. And again, the Tobago House of Assembly spent over $100 million in the construction of the Boko goat race and integrated facility. We cannot afford to forget the gains that we have made over the last 20 years or so. So when they talk about change, ladies and gentlemen, people of Tobago, you have to ask them, change from what to what? Change from what to what? We have constructed pan theaters because we want to see culture move forward. And so we have constructed Carib Dixieland Pan Theater, Bell Garden Pan Theater. We have even constructed the Pan Theater for Cats and Jammers. and they are doing very well. And we continue to provide support to the cultural sector and to the cultural industry so that they can continue to thrive and continue to grow. Look at how we have treated with our micro, small, and medium businesses. And I see the secretary again boasting every time about the millions of dollars that we have been investing in people so that we can develop entrepreneurs at the end of the day. And that is worth a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And so when they come to tell you that this administration has done anything, all you have to say to them, Teacher Percy say, if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die. That is all you have to say to the PDP when they're pulling at straws night after day and trying to make the PNM and try to get Tobagonians to think that we have not invested in their future. We have set aside funding for over $20 million on a yearly basis to encourage tertiary level education throughout the island. And we have been educating nurses, we have been educating managers, we have been educating doctors, we have been educating all and sundry who qualify to take up tertiary level education through DATAS. I want to say we did not have to create that arrangement for the people of Tobago. In other areas, it is about a scholarship. If you don't qualify for the scholarship, you have to go to the banks and find your own money. As a matter of fact, when I went to the University of the West Indies, Caville campus to read for my degree, I had to borrow a loan from the Student Revolving Loan Fund. I didn't get any support from the THA at the time. But the People's National Movement has ensured over time that they listen to the cries of the people and that we can implement programs like these that would give an added benefit and an added layer to the people of Tobago, because we are focused on human development at the end of the day, People's National Movement style. We have increased our ICU beds, and I see Dr. Kamaria Keynes, Dumas, Jack, let me put the handle on your name. And I see her behind there. She works at the TRH and she knows of what I speak. We have increased ICU beds from 2 to 13 when I came in as the secretary. In that division of health, wellness, and family development, we had in the vicinity of about 2 ICU beds. Now we have up to 13. Enough space for persons who may need high-density, high-service care. We have moved our ventilators from 10 to now 28 on the island, and further we have created capacity for those persons who would need hemodialysis care. And so we are now operating at 73% capacity, luckily. And I want to take the opportunity to remind Tobagonians that we need to engage in self-care, because far too often I find that there are too many persons at our health centers and too many persons at our hospital needing care. And so we have to ensure at the end of the day that we practice healthy eating, that we exercise, and that we try as much as is possible to eradicate those high lifestyle diseases that come with diabetes and even hypertension or high blood pressure as we know it. But the point of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, this administration is walking the talk. This administration is ensuring that in every sector that is available in Tobago, that we have made a dent for your benefit. We are investing in our facilities. We are investing in our people, because at the end of the day, we want to see healthy people leading meaningful lives on this island. This is what this election is all about. This is not about Farley wanting to become chief secretary. It's not about that. This is not about them putting forward their personal agenda. This is about bread and butter issues. This is about ensuring that we put in office the best leader. This is about ensuring that we put in office the best vehicle, and that is the People's National Movement and none other. And I would say it, and you would hear it from all of us on this platform. We have been tried. We have been tested. And most importantly, we have been proven. And we are about delivery to the people of Tobago, ladies and gentlemen, and all of Tobago that is here this evening. I just want to add that in this election, we also have to take into consideration that relationship that we preached about night after night and day after day. And we have two representatives who sit in the parliament, one representing us in Tobago East and the other representing us in Tobago West. And 1.5 of them sit in the cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. But more than that, we have a Prime Minister from Tobago who leads the cabinet and who will ensure that the challenges that we have as a people are well articulated and that solutions will come to the benefit of all of us. And with a Prime Minister from Tobago leading the cabinet, we have seen the benefits accrued to Tobagonians over the last 3 or 4 years and counting. And if we go in Roxborough, we see evidence of it. If we drive by on Shervan Road, we see evidence of it. If we go down to Crown Point, we see evidence of it in the Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson Airport. And this has to account for something in this Tobago House of Assembly election, ladies and gentlemen. It is not about who playing the loudest Gaza music. It is not about who bullying people. And today, we were at the center where we went to submit our nomination, and they came in there with their bandwagon of people looking for fight, trying to push us down in this COVID, and of course breaking all of the rules and regulations that we have been articulating that people should follow. And that is the style that they have, attempting to bully each and every one of us here on this island. And so if nothing else, we must reject that kind of behavior coming from the PDP. And so I was making the point this evening that with collaboration, that with 2 members of parliament, one Tobago East, one Tobago West, and a Tobago-born Prime Minister leading the cabinet, that there are benefits to be accrued to us. And most importantly, it is a relationship that we must come out to support by voting solidly and only for the People's National Movement. I just want to add to the discussion this evening, because I don't plan to be too long. But at the end of the day, I have to share with you the information. And that information, again, is outside of collaboration and relationships. We have to make the comparisons with those who want to come forward to lead the Tobago House of Assembly and, of course, the people of Tobago. And let us look at leader for leader. If we compare in political leader of the Tobago Council to political leader of the PDP, we're talking here about chalk and cheese. I am a woman that is well experienced. I am a woman that has a vision and a plan for the people of Tobago when compared to the political leader on the other side. Let us look at the deputy political leader who wants to be chief secretary and going all over Tobago talking about I will be chief secretary, but at the end of the day, he is not even so sure that if they win, he will sit in that seat. And that is why he went forward to sign that social contract, of course, trying to hoodwink the people of Tobago into believing that there is some kind of arrangement between him and the political leader, Watson Duke. But if you notice, within recent times, all of the policy statements are coming from the political leader of the PDP. If you notice in recent times, you have not heard the political leader of the PDP saying that he is supporting Farley as the chief secretary for Tobago. And so, ladies and gentlemen, people of Tobago, boys on the block, wherever you are, you must listen to what is said and what is also not said. And from that, you will be able to make your decisions. And so, I want to make the point this evening, ladies and gentlemen, that again, that deputy political leader who wants to lead us says and does things that is politically expedient. That deputy political leader reminds me of a phrase that my grandmother taught us, that the upholder is worse than the thief. Look at it. I'm sure all of us in Tobago are familiar with that old adage. The upholder is worse than the thief. And so I have been looking at what is happening within the PDP. I have been looking at what is happening within the PSA. The leak of the Auditor General report, as reported in the Trinidad Guardian, not one word from the political leader of the PDP, but he was all over the place telling people lie about an Auditor General report talking about a zipline, where no mention of zipline is in that document. And so there are several questions that we have to ask of the deputy political leader, just like Joel has questions to ask of them on the other side. And those questions that we have to ask as a people, because we big and have sense, what is Farley's position on the auditor report of the PSA? What is his position? It cannot be the signing of a social contract that has no basis in law. What is his position? He's running all over the place, boasting all over, acting as though he's a hero. But when his back is against the wall and when challenges arise from within his own party, he remains quiet and silent. And is he the individual who he says that he is? But if he is big man, open up your mouth now. This situation with Farley and Watson reminds me of a big man living in another big man house. Open up your mouth if your name man. And so there are several questions that we have to ask of that deputy political leader. We also have to ask the question, if Farley indicates that he is a man of integrity, how did his boss pass the screening committee with all those charges over his head? One of the questions we ask all of our candidates, they sit right here. Is there anything that can come out that could be damaging to the party? Those are questions that we ask. And if I forget to ask those questions as the political leader, trust me, there are others around the screening committee who would ask those questions as well. And so those are questions that we must get answers for as we go forth in this election. Because we cannot allow the deputy political leader and the political leader of the PDP to fool us in this election. They talk about trickery all the time, but the biggest trickery that I have ever seen is to put your deputy political leader to lead your party into an election. That is trickery, ladies and gentlemen, fooling the people of Tobago because they know that their political leader cannot sell in Tobago. And so they take Farley and dress him up and acting as though he is the boss within the PDP. And so I say tonight that is the biggest trickery that I have ever seen in this place called Tobago. And if we want to be hoodwinked, if you want to be hoodwinked, then you, I know, will have something else coming. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Tobagonians, I cannot leave this stage without talking about my vision and our vision from the platform of the People's National Movement. And we have been saying that we see a bright future for you, the people of Tobago, whether you're young, whether you're not so young, whether you're a single and vulnerable mother, whether you're a person who is looking for land or to build a house, whether you're a fisherman, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a businessman, we have a future for you under the People's National Movement. And that is why we have been talking about the creation of an investment agency to promote again Tobago to create employment and to seek out opportunities for us on this island. That is why we have been saying that we will create over 3,000 jobs in concert with the private sector. That is why I have said that we are going to establish a division of information and technology, which will at the end of the day open up employment opportunities for our people, but most importantly ensure that we can move to a paperless Tobago House of Assembly. It pains me as a secretary in a division when I see the amount of paperwork and the to and fro and back and fro and come back tomorrow and next week for people and Tobagonians to access services from the divisions. So you should be able to stay at home and make an appointment to see a doctor in the Tobago Regional Health Authority. That is where we want to take Tobago. You should be at home here in the village of Cadler Hall in Scarborough and be able to access services from the Division of Community Development and Culture or even Enterprise and Business Labor without moving a muscle as much as to come to Scarborough. This is where we want to take Tobago. We are not about personal agendas at the end of the day. We are not about fighting for office in terms of who would be chief secretary and who would not be chief secretary. We are about ensuring that we have a vision for you and that most importantly, we are organized in a manner that could ensure that those visions, or the vision rather, is implemented. And so within 6 months of being elected to manage the affairs of this island, we will ensure that we start to distribute lands to you, and we are going to work in concert with the private sector to ensure. I know that there are some private sector persons who have been cutting up land and putting in the infrastructure, and we are going to call them around the table and to discuss an arrangement so that we can start to distribute lands that we will purchase from them within a very short period of time. We have a plan of action on this side. Within a period of 6 months, we are going to activate some of these ideas, some of the plans, some of the vision that we have for you. 10 scholarships we will be offering on a yearly basis, and it starts off in the first instance with specialist medical officers, with animators, with environmental technicians and managers, because we're talking about an environmentally friendly Tobago. We are about ensuring that we monetize our culture. We have been saying it, we have been talking it for the longest while. Tobago is rich in culture. Tobago can dance the PK. Tobago can dance the jig. Tobago could export its culture. We have been talking the talk, and now it's time to ensure that we put our mouth where our money is. We have also been talking about how we could build a robust tourism sector. And I have said it, and other speakers have said it. When you go to respective Caribbean islands, if you land down in Barbados, or if you land down in St. Lucia, if you land down in St. Martin, you see flights galore. So what's wrong with us in Tobago? We could do the same thing too. But we have to go out there to look for the flights because they would not just come on their own. And that is why we have to ensure that we have the product. We have to ensure that we have the accommodation. We have to ensure we have the standards. And when we have those in place, we will ensure that we attract airlines from Scandinavia and that we attract airlines from North America. I don't know if you know that the people of Scandinavia, some of the highest money spenders in terms of tourism and travel. Outside of them, you have the people you have the Asians or the Chinese, so to speak. And we have to be in a position on the heels of the development and construction and completion of the airport to go out and seek out those kind of investments so that they can come here and so that they can be beneficial to our people as well. Because we had an opportunity some time ago, but our people weren't as organized as we expected them to be. We had flights coming in from Brazil, I think it was Sao Paulo. We had flights coming in from different parts of the United Kingdom. I think it was Manchester, and there was also one coming in from Gatwick Airport, etc. We have to be in a position to get those flights back. We have to be in a position to organize our people. And this is what we are going to do as a PNM administration going forward. We spoke about finishing schools for our young people who are vocational minded. And of course, we are going to rebrand those schools, what do you call it? The schools for the boys within the respective communities, the trade schools rather, and to ensure that by the time they finish their program of study at the trade school, that we twin them with capital coming from the business development unit so that they are able to go out there and set up businesses. And we're going to hold their hands until the time that we are comfortable that the businesses can survive on their own. This administration is about creating that environment where businesses can in fact thrive. I spoke to you some time before about how we are going to work with the farmers and the fishermen, how we are going to work with those people who would produce food for us. Because outside of food security, we have opportunities coming in, 300 hotel rooms on our doorstep to be completed somewhere in 2024, 2025, that kind of thing. You may think that that is a long time, but the kind of preparation that we need in order to get to the point where we can produce our goods and services at an international standard, it will take time. And so those who are desirous of doing egg production, those who are desirous of planting watermelon, and all those kind of things that a hotel of that size will need, the Tobago House of Assembly, again through the Business Development Unit, will hold your hands and ensure that you have the capital that you need to drive that kind of development. And this, of course, comes on the heels of us giving out 300 acres of land. This comes on the heels of us approving recently at the Executive Council agriculture access roads so that our farmers can have the wherewithal to do the planting and the growing of livestock, as the case might be. A People's National Movement administration that cares for each and every one of you. This is what it's all about. And so when we tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that we got your back, we mean it. When we tell you that we are going to work with each and every one of you, we mean it, ladies and gentlemen. And all we ask at this point in time is for you to come out and give support to our candidates within the respective electoral district. So whether we're talking about Scarborough, Cudler Hall, we ask you, Scarborough Mount Grace, we ask you to come out and give support to Mrs. Marcelin Melville Jack. Okay. If we're talking about Roxborough Argyle, we ask you to come out and give support to Miss Nadine Stewart Phillips, who understands what representation is all about. If we're talking about Bagatelle, Bacolet, we ask you to come out and give support to our candidate, Joel Duport-Jack. If we're talking about Mount St. George, Goodwood, we ask you to give our candidate, Charles Adams, that support. If we're talking about Bucko, Mount Pleasant, we have Ansel, Born Ready, Dennis. If we're talking about Golden Lane, Lekato, I may not get all of the names right, we have our candidate, Brian Thomas, there, and we ask for you to give him the support. If we're talking about Palativier, Lansamy, Speyside, we have a very young and vibrant candidate who has her own story regardless. We ask you to give her that support. If we're talking about Plymouth, Blackrock, we have Larry Paul. If we're talking about Darrell Spring, Wim Spring Garden, we ask you to give Kelvon the support. If we're talking about Goodwood, Belgarden or Belgarden Pembroke, we have Punchin Kenneth Thomas. And if we're talking about Signal Hill, Patience Hill, you have your own political leader, Tracy Davidson-Celestine. And if we were to do what is right, if we were to wake up early, come the morning of December 6, 2020, for those of you, 2021, for those of you who are runners and canvassers and whatever it is, we ask of you to come out early. For those of you who are sub-agents, we ask of you to come out early because you have to bring out the people. We will provide the transport for those who don't have, whether you're physically challenged or otherwise. The People's National Movement will provide the transport for you. And so all we're asking is for you to give our support to our 15 candidates in every electoral district. And once as you do that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, farmers and fishermen, teachers, boys on the block, wherever you are, we will sing, great is the PNM, great is the PNM. We shall and will continue to prevail. I thank you.
Take no chance. Protect your future. On December 6th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.